See, this is why the bhaktis, the devotional disciples or students that had that natural devotional nature, this is why, like Ram Krishna, this is what's so beneficial about that. He used to go into ecstasy for nothing. He'd just think about Kali and go into ecstasy. And because surrender, as long as the ego is here, individual idea of myself, as long as that's present, the God power is going to be eclipsed. I like what Muji says. He says, as big as the sun is, you can just put your little fingernail up and it can eclipse it. You can't see it anymore. This is like that. God's bigger than that, bigger than the sun, but yet just a little ego identity can eclipse that, and we can't feel this presence or this consciousness or the serenity that comes, the perfume that comes from having this, you can say, conscious contact with our true nature. Just a little ego identity can eclipse all that. That's why we got to surrender. But how to surrender? Because usually, always, when we talk about surrendering, it's the mind that says, yeah, this is a good idea, I got to surrender. The ego is saying, yeah, I got to surrender. Well, how is that going to surrender? That's like saying, like a child, if his mom is sick, he's like saying, I got to be a doctor and fix her or something. Like, he can't. The capacity's not there. That's the same thing. The ego, self-will mind, it cannot surrender. It's against its whole nature to surrender. If it totally surrendered, there wouldn't be any existence. We got to have some ego mind, some separate individual, even if it's on provisional level, got to have that so that it can contemplate its true nature. So if it's a divine, or it was divinely ordained that the mind and ego can't surrender. It just doesn't have that software. It's going to do the opposite. It's going to not surrender. But yet, we're talking about here the importance of surrender. It's a conundrum. Who can solve it? We have to ask somebody that knows. Who knows? The non-dual, no. They'll just say there's no surrender and there's no surrenderer, and yeah, what are you going to do with that? It's like, okay. It doesn't feel good though. No, there's no feelings. Okay. So, how do you surrender? Grace is doing everything. It's surrendering. It's not surrendering. How is that beneficial, not surrendering? Because that will lead us on an experiential level to the importance of surrendering. That's what I'm saying. I said before, God plays the role of the villain, and then of the plays the role of the villain transforming, the transformation of the villain, and then plays the role of the hero. A true hero can't be a real hero if he doesn't know what it's like to be a villain. You gotta have, this gives you depth. When we play all these roles, we get depth. So grace is doing that. God's doing that. There's some, I've heard before, this is more in India or in Asia. They have a more, generally speaking, they have a stronger bhakti devotional nature than the Western. Western's more Advaita and nothing exists, everything, you know. You don't see a lot of Indians. You see some, but it predominates in the West because the West is so mind driven. The East, the Asia, it's more heart driven. Now there's duality to both. When you that's why the West has all the technology, like their intellect's super developed. The downside is they're some of the coldest, driest, mentally ill people that I've ever met. That's why I don't live there. In Asia, or South America, I'm generalizing, so don't mess with me. Their nature is more heart-centered. I knew that immediately. The first country I've ever went to leaving America was Brazil. I knew when I was on the plane going to Brazil, I'm like, damn, I don't want to go back to America. I could feel the whole shift in energy just getting on the plane to go there. The stewardess, just everybody, it was a higher frequency heart energy. And then going on the plane to come back to America after 6 months being in Brazil, I'm like, damn, I don't want to go back. I felt it. The cold, unhappy, mentally ill stewardess. I'm generalizing. And actually, when I came back to America in California, I only stayed like a week. And then I called my travel. I knew I was walking through the grocery store getting groceries like the next day after I got back. And I'm like, this does not feel right. I had like reverse culture shock. I just didn't want to be there. So I called my agent. I'm like, I need to go back to Brazil. And I did. And then I never lived in America since. It's been like 20 years. I'd go back for emergency, like if I have to go back to take care of something, but I haven't lived there. And I don't miss it. It's cool though. Everything's cool. I'm not passionate. Anyway, where were we going with this? We were talking about surrender. So Asia, South America, the East. There's a more of a heart, open heart energy. I choose that over mind energy, even though they both have dualistic consequences. So I've already shared the consequence of having too much of a developed intellect. The consequence, I got to make balance. The consequence for having being excessively emotional, because we're going to be one or the other, excessively emotional or excessively intellectual. There's no perfect balance. We wouldn't exist. Okay. So when you're too excessively emotional, you don't have sometimes depth. That was my issue I had when I wanted to connect with the people. We could connect via just energetically and feeling. This reminds me of a story. When I was in China, I had sex with a Chinese girl. It's like 15 years ago. And was it that long ago? Maybe 12. And she didn't speak any English. Didn't know yes, didn't know no, didn't know anything. And that was a really nice experience because we were forced to just relate energetically. We couldn't say anything. And so it's like the mind just switched off because it had to. And there was what was left, just an energetic communion. It's pretty cool. So that's the thing with you can't, like, I couldn't talk like this with them. Now they'd be nice and listen, but as far as playing tennis, like play non-dual tennis, you hit the ball, they hit it back, like it's not there really. And then on superficial level, you can say one of the consequences is they're not going to have the big technology, that the West has, generally speaking. But who cares, right? I like this technology. There's some of these bhaktis that would say, I've heard them. They're like, I don't even have. They're praying to one of the gods, whatever, Shiva or Vishnu or Brahman. I mean, there's hundreds of gods in India. The monkey and the elephant god and the cow god. That's cool. No dogma there. Not, you got to believe in this way, you're going to go to hell. No. It's like, please. How can people believe that, Go to hell forever. Not just go to hell to learn a lesson. No, you're going to go to hell forever. I was in Bible school and I was 10 or 9. No, maybe 8. I just went because I liked the cookies and milk I got. But they had a class once. Man, these are children in here, and the guy is saying about describing what hell's like. And you go to this pit of fire. I remember because it's such a crazy thing. And you sit in this fire, and it's so hot your teeth chatter. Can't stop chattering. Forever. And I'm like, whoa, if there's a hell, you're going. I mean, how are you going to say that to elementary kids, you know. Scary stuff, though. I can see how you can get messed up and brainwashed, and you know, you got to get deprogrammed from all that. Yeah, it affected me also. So it took some time. I had a good mentor when I was 15, helped me get clean and sober. I brought that stuff to him, and he straightened me out. He says, "Man, it's not like that." I said, "Good. Tell me what it's like." So some of these bhakti devotional types, they're praying to they're worshiping their God, and they're like, "I don't even have the power to worship you. Like, this is you. You're giving me the power to even worship you." Like, total surrender. They realize because it's true. It's not a nice thought, or they're not trying to be humble. They have seen that they don't have the power to do anything. It's only by grace of God that's given them power to do anything. Now, someone could say, "Well, what do you mean, though? Like, I can go to church and I can get on my knees and I can do..." Yeah, you can do that, but how effective is that? You see, when grace is doing something for me, which she can't do until I surrender. How do you surrender? I don't know. No. So when grace is fueling our actions and devotion and sadhana, you're going to get an effect. That's when the transformation and awakening can happen, and you know it. You're like, this whole thing is being done by grace. I don't have any say in it. And you know what that does? That realization just gives you more peace. The awakening becomes more deep because you're like more into surrender. That's why I say at some point growth is exponential. Once you cross that corner or something, you know, you just keep, you know, it's like once you make a bunch of money, it's easy to make more. Once you get a girl, it's easy to get another girl. That's what they say, but I don't remember that being true. I think because I didn't want another girl. Like, one's enough, you know. How are you going to deal with 2 or 3? So, how do you surrender? Can I summarize? Did you get anything from that? On some level, I'm conveying how to surrender. I mean, how are you going to talk about... I can't give a logical, systematic articulation on how to surrender. It's not like I'm giving directions to the bus station. We're talking about existential, spiritual stuff. I can point to it. I feel the energy in the words that I'm sharing. It's pointing to it somehow. Something has to be sick of ourselves, like the other video I made. That's an evolutionary thing. Just be conscious about it, though. The more conscious we are in our day... I was sharing this. I was at a meeting last night, and we were talking, and this is a good one. So let's say you're awake 16 or 18 hours a day. You sleep 6 or 8. How many moments of that day are you aware of your consciousness or presence, or you're praying or asking that your ego will be aligned with God's will? How often are you doing that versus how much are you in your mind and your thinking and your projections and your desires and what are you going to do today? Oh, I don't like that person. Oh, I'm cool. All that stuff. How often are you giving your life, your idea of yourself back up to existence? I think that practice alone is sufficient. You don't even have to do anything else. That there alone is going to shape one's life and give spiritual continuity to make this whole thing easier. Because you're open and receptive to your higher nature bleeding through into your human ego construct nature. As long as we can keep staying open to that and we want that, then our desire for that's going to keep increasing, and they're going to get more download, more from it, more, which is wisdom, and we're going to be more fused with it. So that's how it happens. Even though grace is doing that whole thing too. Grace puts it in your mind to even do that, to even hear, to let you find somebody that's even saying that. Grace is doing that. So somehow this has to be a working part of our mind, to where we're always thinking about this level of things. Is grace doing this? What's happened? Oh wow, I can see grace working through that person. Let me feel my presence right now. Okay, I noticed that the body's doing something. I'm buying something at the store and paying money, but yet this background awareness is it's alive. Oh wait, I can see this awareness in you too. I'm going to focus. Oh, it's the same consciousness in you and me. I'm talking to you. I'm speaking. I'm not telling you what I'm feeling, but I'm doing this work at the same time I'm talking to you. All that. That's a spiritual practice. When that becomes the most important thing, instead of counting your money and thinking about what your significant other isn't doing or all that stuff, then you're going to get the benefit, you know. And then that creates a surrender, because you're giving yourself up. We got to give ourselves up to get to experience our true nature. Once we start tasting our true nature, it becomes easier to give ourselves up. Let me know if that helped you. All right.